We're getting ready to do a radio show. Ken's queuing up the music, and I'm putting on my lipstick and my makeup and streaming live. So, how was the Green Thumb show?
Very informative today. We actually talked about you today.
Me?
Yeah, I mentioned, hey, we were talking about Stan. This is the anniversary of the day Stan found out he needed a heart transplant. So we were talking about his heart, and I mentioned my high blood pressure. I'll be there with you soon, Doc.
Well, now you have someone who can advise you on what it's like to have a heart transplant.
Doesn't sound like any fun.
No, it's the surgery's not too bad. I mean, you're going to be sore, but it's all the medicines you have to take.
Yeah, he said he's on medicine for the rest of his life, but it's keeping him alive. So he's got the heart of a 21. He's young at heart. He's got the heart of a 21-year-old.
As long as he doesn't reject it. That's the problem with transplants is the rejection.
Well, it's been about 6 months. He's doing pretty well.
Good. And then they also get coronary artery disease. They get heart attacks because the blood vessels get clogged up much easier.
The thing he can't understand is he lived a stellar life. Didn't smoke, doesn't drink, could do like a 3 to 9, 40-yard dash. He said he's always in great shape, and all of a sudden this.
He probably had viral cardiomyopathy or inherited it or something. There's a number of things that you can get. You can inherit cardiomyopathies from family members. You can catch a virus that can damage your heart. Those are probably the most common things. And then
all right, Don, we're getting close to news here. I'm going to get everything final check, and we'll get to it after the weather.
All right, buddy. We're getting ready to do a show. Streaming live, I hope, on Facebook and YouTube and my station or my website, drbillradiomd.com. So you can grab me here, there, and everywhere. we have any live feed yet, Ken? Good morning, Dr. Bill here, your Radio MD. How's everybody doing this morning? We're doing a radio show. I'm having a little trouble getting my video going for the streaming, but we'll get that. But you can still listen. We've got a big show today. It got a lot going on. First, I got to tell you what's going on in the neighborhood here. Ken, are you there, buddy?
I am always with you, Doc. You know that.
God, that's so good. I'm glad to hear that because I was worried. I didn't hear you for a while, and I thought maybe you had left me.
Never, sir. Never.
You wouldn't desert me, would you?
No, you're my doctor.
Oh, and you were down to see me this week, so I hear.
Yeah, I rang the bell this week for blood pressure, my first time ever in my life.
Wow.
So, take care of that.
Well, that's important to get that blood pressure under control and the blood sugar and the cholesterol and all the other things that keep us healthy. And we were talking before the show about, what's the guy's name that has the Green Thumb show?
Stan, the Green Thumb show, yeah.
Transplant.
Yeah, Stan.
And he said he never had any problems. And of course, you don't know. You don't know if he didn't take care of his blood pressure or what, but he says he never had any problems, blood pressure, cholesterol, diabetes. But there are other things that can damage the heart, like we were talking about. Viral infections can do that. They're known to cause cardiomyopathies, dilated hearts, and heart failure, end-stage heart disease. And also you can inherit things. I mean, you can inherit disorders from your family that will kill your heart. You can also
so no matter how healthy you live, there's no guarantee of a nice long life.
No, but we're doing so much better than we were 50, 100, 200 years ago, for goodness sakes.
Oh, sure, yeah.
We're living longer, healthier, better, happier lives, although you wouldn't think it the way people are talking these days. So
we're quite blessed in this era right now, actually, here, especially in this country.
Yeah, the Ukraine's not blessed right now, but
no,
we are. And I think this is a great reminder of how safe and how lucky we are to be living where we are living. It's hard to reach us, first of all. And secondly, if you do reach us, you're going to get an immediate response, and it's not going to be very pleasant.
Yeah, those oceans still kind of work, don't they?
To a certain degree, they do. I mean, they're not.
You can hit us with missiles, but try and take over without them.
No, you can't get boots on the ground unless you're really industrious.
You might be able to come up through Mexico, possibly, but I think we could stop that pretty easily.
Well, everybody else is coming up through Mexico. Why the Russians couldn't march
so
up?
Why not the Russians?
Get to the border and say, we're homeless. Let us in.
By the time Joe noticed, half the army'd be here.
So we have our own little war going on in our community here, our townhomes. There's a couple, Tim and Baxter, and they have a beehive outside of their house up under the eaves, way up high. And the homeowners association is responsible for everything from the stucco out and the eaves and the roof. And so we said we got to get rid of these bees because, of course, they're a threat. And so they pitched a fit and killing the bees is unacceptable, and you have to move the hive, and you have to this and that. And so, they called the county sheriff's office and the state agricultural department, and we called the city police, and it was, and we finally got the bee killer out here, and he said that he had to bring specialized equipment. He's coming back on Monday. So Tim was in the front yard, and Tim is a little calmer than Baxter. Baxter's called me foul names in the past, which hurt my feelings, but they were probably true. He called me an AH, and and I said, well, my dad called me that, so I thought that was my name until I went to kindergarten. And then somebody said, Billy. I said, who? Billy? Who's Billy? What's your name? A-hole Handelman?
Don't.
Well, I got sent to the principal's office, of course. But 6 years
Well,
ago,
so what's going to happen with the bees? Are they going to save the hive?
well, I made a peace gesture. I said, look, the condominium, the homeowners association, not condominium homeowners, because we're townhomes, we're not condos, doesn't want to pay the $350 to $400 to rescue the hive. So I said, why don't we form a Save the Bees fund, and I'll chip in $50. And their reply was, good luck with your fund. And so I said it to him again when I saw him in the front yard. I said, look, I offered $50, and why don't we do it? Well, I'm not going door to door to collect money. I said, well, we got a website. We've got a Facebook page, for God's sakes. At any rate, they just want to be obstinate and difficult. And then so Tim says, well, if you kill those bees, that'll be on your conscience. I'm thinking, damn it.
Okay.
Will I be known as the great bee killer around here? What? But there's ways you can encourage them to swarm and move their hive. You can use vinegar, you can use mothballs, you can smoke them, cinnamon, peppermint, garlic spray. There's a whole host of things. Of course, it takes some time, and you got to have the right equipment, and you got to get close enough to have these things be effective. And I'm not climbing up on a ladder and putting on a bee outfit and smoking those suckers out. That ain't gonna happen. But
won't they just pretty much scatter as soon as somebody starts messing with the hive? I mean, they're going to try and swarm and attack, but after that, are you really killing the bees, or are they just moving somewhere else?
Well, if you want to move them, then you got to go up there and do that smoking stuff, and I'm telling you, that's going to cost just as much as having somebody go up there and rescue the hive. And we have a contract with our pest control company, and it covers bees and wasps that nest outside of the units. So why should the community pay $400 to have this hive removed? I mean, if people want it removed, and I'm all for it to save the bees, and I'll chip in, but these guys have got to chip in too, and they've got to make some effort. They can't just say, demand and say you can't do this and you can't do that. Well, you know what? There's no state statute that says you cannot kill wild bees, and I've looked it up. There are state statutes that govern apiaries and beekeepers. They have certain rules and regs they have to live by to get a license, and of course they have to take care of their hives and that sort of thing. But as one of the board members said, above the frost line, all the bees die every year anyway, which I don't
That's right.
I mean, obviously they don't all die because they come back in the spring, but I'm sure that a lot of them get killed, especially if
the center of the hive is probably protected, but
Yeah.
a lot of them must die, yes,
Yeah.
especially on the when you get up towards, Chicago and places like that.
Oh, yeah. And
Well, do your best with the bees there, Doc.
it's you can't make this stuff up. The drama and the things I'm learning as the president of our homeowners association. Oh my God, where did all this come from? I have no idea. So now, did you see where Zelensky and his boys blew up a fuel depot inside of Russia? Did you hear about that?
I did. I was very pleased to hear that.
And now Zelensky, I guess he was talking with Brett Baer on Friday on Brett Baer's news show, the 6 to 7 on Fox. And he said, "We're not surrendering. We ain't giving up.
They're going on the attack.
We're taking the fight to them." And I guess we're pumping in more arms and goods. We're giving them night vision goggles, and we're giving them weapons, and we're giving them equipment so that if they have a gas or some kind of chemical attack, they can survive that. And that we should. I mean, come on, this is not a good thing to let the Russians tromp all over. And like Zelensky said, if you give them a little bit, they'll take more. And
that's right.
That's right, and that's what you and I have been saying on the show for the past few months. And I don't know what Biden's doing. I think he's actually sending troops in quietly and then kind of giving it away.
Well, we're just being the great arsenal that we were in the right before World War II, before we jumped in there. So,
yeah, and
it's consistent with our past.
If the Russians used tactical nukes, do we jump in? I mean, if they fire a small nuclear shell through a cannon at Mariupol or somewhere, what do? Do we allow?
Probably the way they're going, it probably would explode right there in the cannon. They don't seem to be. I really don't think we want these guys playing with nukes because they don't seem to know what they're doing. Did you hear what happened at Chernobyl?
No, I heard they turned the light switch off, but I don't know if they.
They went through. They went through that area at high speed with tanks and stirred up all this dust that they've now been breathing for the last 3 or 4 weeks around there, and a number of them have come down with radiation sickness. Wow. They say the soldiers there apparently on the ground are saying, we've never heard of Chernobyl before. So it was brushed under the rug apparently in Russia, especially probably in the schools. So they got some guys dying from radiation sickness over there.
It's amazing how ignorant, and we talked about this, and the Russians aren't stupid people. They're just ignorant. They don't have any education on things like this. And like I said, when Chernobyl melted down, I said, why on earth would anybody give the Russians this kind of technology? I mean, they can't handle it. So they probably will blow themselves up. You're right.
Yeah, so, good luck, guys. But I don't know, should they fire one? Should we respond in kind? I think we have to.
Well, I don't think we should go nuclear, but I do think that we'll have to step in and put boots on the ground and push the Russians out. Otherwise, they're just going to keep moving west and south, or east and south, or west and south. Yeah, west and south. And they want Europe. I mean, come on. Everybody wants Europe. Europe wants Europe. They've been fighting over that for decades.
It's a nice place to visit in the summer.
Yeah, in the winter it gets a little nippy further north you go. And you think about it, you go to northern Germany and you're up there around the same latitude as Nova Scotia. I mean, it's cold, baby.
It is. That's why you head for the Mediterranean in winter, I guess. At least the oligarchs do.
Yeah, and the oligarchs are apparently they're safe so far, but now everybody's threatening. I guess we're threatening to start locking them up.
But what a bunch of babies are screaming about not being able to book I was reading just this morning, one oligarch crying about not being able to book a private plane. Oh my, he may have to fly commercial.
And then we can grab his ass and womp on
Exactly. Exactly.
Turn him upside down, shake out a few grand. So I guess that now the Russians are all upset and because their fuel depot was attacked, and they're saying, well, we don't know if we're going to continue to talk to you Ukrainians anymore and make peace with you. Ukrainians are like, oh, we don't care. we'll keep
the talks are a sham anyway. They have no intention of pulling out.
Meanwhile, the Pentagon has finished once again their investigation into whether or not the military is a breeding ground for right-wing extremists. And so almost all the extremists they found were ex-military. And of the 2.1 million that are active right now, I think they found 15 or 20 that they said might be terrorists because they were on websites that were right-wing racist websites. Who knows? So,
Mm.
but come on. If you're in the military, you're not going to want to disrespect the guy next to you. You might be in a firefight with him, and you'll need him. And
Your life depends on his. His life depends on yours.
yeah. So I mean, 99% of these guys aren't that stupid. I mean, I don't know if we. I don't know if the frontline soldiers or the intelligentsia of the world, but certainly they're smart enough to know how to cooperate so that they can win a fight. I mean, that's the whole idea, right?
That's why they give them the training.
Why are we
Supposedly.
wasting all this time and money? This is left-wing lunacy. And so somebody on the right said, well, why aren't we looking at the left wing and what they're doing? And, I mean, come on, isn't it racist to say that whites are bad and blacks are good? Is that not racist?
Anytime you make a qualification because of race, it's bad.
It's bad.
I don't care what race it is.
Yeah, I mean, come on. We're intermarrying. Everything's turning kind of honey olive and light brown, and who cares? What's the difference?
Yeah. My life is just the way I want it, so.
And did you see this?
Live and let live.
Did you see this woke law that the Florida legislature and I guess the governor just signed into law? Did you read about that?
Yeah, I did. Like this one that Disney's not too happy about, apparently.
Well, a lot of the employees at Disney are pushing back and saying that all this wokeness at Disney is just a small group of very vocal people, and that's the same thing with the woke movement and the Black Lives Matter. I mean, it was just a handful of people and a bunch of crazies, a bunch of psychotics out on the street, mostly white, by the way, who were protesting and proclaiming their proclivity for the movements and the get the whitey kind of thing. And I don't know. I don't get it. I understand it from a medical point of view that you have a lot of people who have psychiatric illnesses, personality disorders, manic depression, psychotics, and they're on the street because they don't have anywhere to go. And the state of California turned a whole bunch of people out onto the street from the prison system, many of whom are crazy. And it just is really a sad situation. I mean, we are not providing adequately for our mentally ill people. And then they get involved in these movements because it gives them something to do. It gives them a cause. And they march and yell and scream and make a big deal, and the cameras focus up real close to make it look like it's a huge crowd. But if you pan back, there's hardly anybody there,
Yeah, there's 10 people there, right? Yeah.
And of course the press is happy because they're making money. They're selling ads, and for goodness sakes. Do we do that on the backs of business people, like in Seattle, where they burnt down businesses and destroyed whole blocks? I mean, it makes no sense, but apparently this was what the left wanted at that time. It made them happy.
Well, it never makes sense to burn down your own grocery store, you know what I mean?
No, it doesn't make any sense. And it's always a small group of people. It's always just a little itty-bitty fraction, but it turns into and makes it look like it's a huge thing, especially if you burn down a whole city. I mean, if you can do that, you can get some press. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The media will notice. You're right.
You'll get some notice. So the woke bill, basically, from what I can gather, it says that you cannot have any classroom teachings or businesses larger than 15 employees. You can't have anything where people are mandated to sit and listen to this woke philosophy and to the righteousness of transgenderism and LBGT and all that. You gotta think about this, Ken. I mean, you can't change the floor plan of a house by taking off wood siding and putting up brick veneer. It doesn't work. It's still the same house. Now you can
still the same square footage. That's right.
The same. I mean, you might be able to go in and move some walls around, but we're not at that point yet where you can genetically change your gender, and that would be pretty tough to do as an adult, even if there were ways to do it. I mean, my goodness, that would take a lot of time, and I'm sure it would be very painful to change your whole genetic makeup so that you became a man from a woman or a woman from a man. I think that we're taking this way too far. I mean, there's just no science that supports any of this. There's no science that says having a sex change operation makes you a happier person. In fact, the last study I saw out of Johns Hopkins said it didn't do that and that it's a failure. But you know what it is? It's money. It's money for the plastic surgeons. They're making big money on this.
So it's all psychological.
Yeah, I mean, you can
obviously, because there are only two sexes. You're either a man or a woman, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, there are people who are born with genetic diseases, like Jamie Lee Curtis. She has the testosterone insensitive receptors. So even though she is genetically male phenotype, her body habitus is female because the predominant hormone was estrogen, because there was no receptors that would accept the testosterone hormone, and so she, from the moment she was conceived, she had this, and so everything about her, other than she doesn't have any reproductive organs in her pelvis, is that she looks like a woman and acts like a woman and was raised like a woman. But that's rare. That's very rare. And I mean, I don't know why she would want to change her gender if she was happily raised as a girl. Now, there was a kid in Atlanta years ago, a baby, who had his penis accidentally burnt off by the cautery for doing a circumcision, and they turned him into a female as an infant. But when he reached adolescence, guess what? He said, "I'm not a girl. I want to go play football." And so he went and had whatever he could have done to transform his gender back into what he genetically was, which was an XY male. So, I mean, there are things that there are some rare medical reasons that make sense to have these operations, but a lot of this is just nonsense. It's just people being convinced that they would be happier as something else. And Ken, you and I both know that happiness doesn't come from without.
No.
It comes from within. You either learn to love yourself and live with yourself, or you don't. And it's not an easy process, but you can do it. And we have medications for depression. We have medications for psychiatric illnesses, and that's getting a lot better as the years roll by. I mean, everything in medicine is getting better. And like I tell people when they say, are the antidepressants safe? I said, I've been on them since 1992. And I haven't killed anybody since then.
Since then.
And I turned my Uzi in. So I think that we have to really stop and think long and hard about what we're doing as a society. And I agree with the governor. I mean, I don't agree with him on everything, but I agree with him on this issue, and I agree with the legislature. And, of course, there's all these people now on the left who are saying this is a criminal and this is going to shut down discussion on racism in our culture and society. I'm thinking, what are you talking about? We're doing fine. I mean, we're, 150 years from the Civil War?
About, yeah.
160. And we have almost total integration now. I mean, we went from a slave country to total integration in 160 years. Not bad. Not bad. I don't think you can see that anywhere else in history. And I told you about the Haitian guy that I met on a cruise, and we were talking. He had actually emigrated to Miami, and he had started working at Publix and worked his way up, and he was a store manager, which is a heck of a good job. To manage a Publix, you're getting paid in six figures, and you're doing extremely well. And he's taking a cruise, and he said, "Doc, this is the least racist country I've ever been in the United States." He said, "I don't care what anybody says." He says, "I've been to France, I've traveled all over, and you know what? Nobody treats you as well as the United States treats you. Nowhere are you as accepted." And me, a guy from Haiti, black with a French-English accent, and he's treated like a full citizen, which he is.
Yeah.
Come on. Let's get over this nonsense.
Give us your huddled masses, and we'll turn them into millionaires.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah. That's what makes America great. Everybody's got a shot.
Everybody does have a shot. And meanwhile, back at the White House, Title 42 expulsions, it looks like the White House is going to end that, even though I think it's a law, but they can choose not to enforce it. And basically, what Title 42 says is that if you come from a country where there's some kind of endemic illness or epidemic going on, we can keep you out. We can refuse to let you across the border or even apply for a green card. And so if Biden ends that, it's going to double or triple the number of people coming across the border illegally. And what are these guys thinking? What are they thinking?
That rule was a Trump administration rule, I believe, was it not? It was a good one, too.
I think it was a federal law. It was set out by the law in 42 U.S.C. 265. So this is an actual law,
Wow.
but Trump decided to enforce it. And especially when the pandemic came along, he said, we're shutting the whole border. And, of course, the Democrats publicly are yelling, you're a racist, and you're this, and you're that, and you can't do that. And quietly they're going to the White House saying, Don, you got to shut the border down. You can't let these people come in with COVID. But this is politics, right?
Yeah, that's right, unfortunately.
What are we going to do, Ken?
What we're going to do is ask a question right now, Doc, and then we're going to take a little break. But first, your question for the day. And the prize, as always, is to Dr. Bill, your radio MD mugs from the stash of Dr. Handelman here. And we've got the question today dealing with, first let me give you the phone number, 877-969-8600. That's 877-969-8600. First one to answer this question will win the 2 mugs from the doc. What form of wildlife gave Doc trouble in the last week? What form of wildlife gave Doc trouble this week in his personal life? If you know, be the first caller at 877-969-8600. You ready for a break, Doc?
I am, but I just want to give everybody one clue. It wasn't my wife. The wild Korean was not the problem this week.
Not that kind of wild animal.
Oh, the guy that won last week, I was a little tardy in getting his mugs mailed, but they're on the way. So hang in there. They're coming, guys. I'm Dr. Bill.
I'll be right back.
Be right back. Hey, Ken, can you turn on the feed? And I'm back. This is Dr. Billy, Radio MD. Got Ken by my side. By the way, we're at 727-384-6411. 727-384-6411. We are a full-service medical clinic, cardiology, general medicine, COVID. We do rapid COVID testing. We do the PCR rapid testing. That can be done in a half an hour. Although, they're killing the business here, Ken. They're not requiring it anymore to get back into Canada. So
You still have to get one to get on a plane, though, don't you? Or a cruise ship or something like that?
I think you just have to have an antigen test, but I don't know. Maybe some of them require the rapid or the PCR, too. There are two different tests. The antigen tests for the spike protein, and the PCR actually tests for the genetic material inside of the virus. So, but we'll see what happens. If they come for the machine, they can take it, because I'm not paying $12,000 for that thing if I'm not going to use it.
Well, I hear we may be in for another spike.
We can only hope. We can only hope. Hospital's slow, baby.
All right, I'll come get my booster then when I'm ready. My second booster. Yeah.
So we're going to stop the woke act, or no? I'm all for it. I don't know about you.
I don't see any reason to stop it. No, if they want to teach something in the schools, how about another half hour of math and science?
Yeah, what's a fifth grader need to know about the way that you change the gender of somebody? Which, of course, you don't really do. You just change the siding. That's all.
But even in high school, there's no reason to get into that. I don't think. I'll tell you the truth. That's just me.
So one of my friends, when my son and her son were small, she wanted to tell them about sex and teach them. I said, they don't need any encouragement, because I listened to them, riding in the car. I took them on vacations, and they're third, fourth, fifth graders, and they're talking about their teacher's legs and all that stuff.
Wow.
They do not need any encouragement. No. They do not need any. Meanwhile, Putin says he's going to get back at the West because he's going to charge rubles for his gas and oil. I didn't know anybody was buying their stuff anymore. I thought that was pretty much over with, but I guess he's selling it to China, and I don't know if India is buying or not. Have you heard?
I think India is still buying. Yes,
they're still buying some things, and they made a little nod to them and said, "Yeah, you can pay a few $100 million in rubles. We'll take them." The India's economy is 10 times the size of Russia's, so they don't care. They're like, let it come in. It's a drop in the bucket.
I think China might be buying some too, just a little bit.
I don't know if they have the infrastructure yet to I mean, they'd have to truck it. I don't think they have a pipeline.
No, they have pipelines between the two countries now.
Oh, they do? They got some
Yeah,
pipelines?
they opened up a new one not too long ago, maybe a year ago.
Well, good for them. Good for them.
So, hey, we have a winner, Doc.
Who we got?
We have, as the winner of the two Dr. Bill, your Radio MD mugs, is Deborah Dubles, or is it Doubles? Dubles, probably, from St. Pete. So congratulations to Deborah Dubles of St. Pete. You've won your two Dr. Bill, your Radio MD mugs, and they will be out to you shortly.
And Deborah, we appreciate you listening. Thank you. We love the support that we're receiving from the community. It kind of warms the cockles of our hearts, doesn't it, Ken?
And you can see those with an X-ray.
Yes, you can. And an ultrasound.
We see them. We actually see them heat up. Oh, that'll be a CAT scan, probably.
So did you hear where Vice President Pence, former Vice President Pence, I guess on one of the Fox shows, he said that Biden has done more damage to the country than any president in recent history. I don't know how recent he means, but I think he and Trump had a little tiff at the end, though, didn't they?
They had a little falling out, I think. Yes, sir.
But so Pence is going on the offensive. I don't think that the Democrats are going to do well at the midterm. I just don't see that. I don't think they can do anything at this point to turn it around.
Well, they're going to lose the House. I think that's pretty much for sure.
I think they're going to lose the Senate, too.
Well, then we'll have 2 years of nothing.
We'll have 2 years.
They won't have a veto-proof
No,
majority.
Veto-proof because there's no way they're going to get a 2/3 majority in both houses.
Right, so we're going to have 2 years of nothing then. Maybe that's best. You can't do any harm if you're not doing anything.
Ken, I went to the gas station to fill my truck up. $125.
Whoa!
$5 a gallon, 25 gallons. It was over $125. I mean, a year ago it was 75, 70. What happened? What happened?
I don't know. I think it's a combination of things. It's just not inflation because it's gone way over inflation.
Oh yeah. And why won't they let us drill? Why won't they open up the pipelines from Canada? I mean, this makes no sense. Why don't we encourage the infrastructure, the refineries to ramp back up? I mean, we've got tons of people that are unemployed that would love to have a nice job like working at a refinery where you can make $30 an hour. You know, it's a good gig. I don't get it.
How long does it take to open up a new well? I don't know.
Well,
first you have to do your you have to do your exploring to make sure there's oil down there.
Well, we've already explored all the federal land. We know exactly where the oil is. That's all been done. The geologists have already mapped all that out. They know where these big pockets are, you know, especially up in Alaska. But
why aren't the oil companies going to get it?
Because Joe won't let them drill. They can't drill on federal land.
Oh, we're talking about federal land. Okay.
And
I know if you're on private land, you can do whatever you want. Yeah.
To a certain extent. But, you know, there's in California you can't. They've got EPA laws in California that prohibit you from doing some of that. And you can ride up and down the coast and see offshore rigs that are just sitting there idle for decades because of their left-wing lunacy. But they don't mind if Nevada makes it and runs coal plants and then sells them the electricity. They're okay with that.
Well, you gotta know how to vote in the coming elections. That's the only solution.
Yep, you've got to, and it's not just in the United States. I mean, in the Philippines, Duterte, you know, he made a big deal with China when he came in 2015, 2016, and China was going to help him build his infrastructure, and they were going to have joint naval operations, naval practices together, and they haven't. The Chinese haven't done one thing to build anything in the Philippines, and now Duterte, he's on his way out, and now he's saying, maybe I made a mistake. Let's go cuddle up with the United States and see where that goes. And meanwhile, China's mooching and encroaching and taking over land that the islands that the Philippines had claimed in the South China Sea for centuries. So buyer's remorse, right?
That's right. He literally kicked us out.
Yeah, and now he's saying, well, maybe we better get these guys back in.
Well, maybe we shouldn't go, Doc.
Well,
I know we need them.
well, there's bigger issues here.
Yeah.
The Spratly Islands, we took those in World War II. The Spratlys.
The Spratleys? I don't think I've heard of the Spratleys. Where are the Spratleys?
They're in the South China Sea, and they're scattered between the Philippines and the mainland of Southeast Asia.
Mm-hmm.
So they're.
I have to look those up. I'm not familiar with them.
I'm not sure if it was the Navy or if it was MacArthur that came up through the Spratlys. I forget which branch of the service. They had a big fight. MacArthur said he would come up from Australia through New Guinea and Borneo and all that, and lead a land invasion of the Philippines to take them back. And of course, Nimitz said, "Man, MacArthur's insane, but as long as he's in Australia and out of my way, I don't care." And he did his naval thing, and of course, we actually won the war with the Navy in the Pacific and the Marines, and the Army came along and of course helped out, but the initial spearhead was by the Navy and the Marines.
I think Nimitz was probably right on that one. I don't think we really needed to go into the Philippines, because if you take out Japan, you take out what they left behind.
I mean, I guess it was there was a certain element of pride for the United States and a show of support for the Filipinos that we went back in and did what we did and took the islands back from the Japanese and kicked them out and all that. And we also had a lot of prisoners of war who were dying, and we had a responsibility to them to.
Yeah, there were American civilians imprisoned there as well, so I guess we probably should have gone back there.
And Filipinos, too. Let's not forget the Filipino resistance and the people that were killed that were Filipinos. What are you gonna
Monday morning quarterbacking is always easy, though.
Well, they didn't ask me back then. Wait a minute, I don't think I was alive. Never mind. So now we've got ex-UN prosecutor Carla Del Ponte. She's a Swiss attorney who prosecuted the war criminals from Serbia. What's his name? Who was that guy?
I don't recall, but for the mass executions they put together over there back then.
Yeah, and also in Rwanda. So she was the person that carried on the Slobodan Milosevic.
There you go.
That's who it is. She brought him to trial at the World Court, and of course he was sentenced to something or another, death or life, and I think he died while he was waiting for his sentence to be completed. And then she also went into Rwanda and prosecuted, the Hutus and who were the other tribes, the two tribes that were fighting. And one killed the other one, killed 1 million of the other ones. So at any rate, she says that that Putin is a war criminal and he'll need to be brought to justice. And she knows because she did this as a career for the UN and for the World Court. Carla Del Ponte, and she is Swiss. And there you go, man. She says Putin is a war criminal. Period. And she said she hopes never to see mass graves again, like she saw in the Balkans with the civil war there after Yugoslavia broke up. The Serbs went after a whole bunch of people they didn't like.
Yeah, it was a cleansing. They called it.
Yeah, the cleansing. And so it looks like this is what Putin's doing now. And I guess they've got mass graves and they're just bulldozing the dead bodies of the Ukrainians into the mass graves. And she says this is unacceptable. And I guess she's going to go after him if she can.
How? How are you going to do that?
Well, I think that we eventually are going to have to go in and put an end to it. That's what happened in the Balkans. It was going on until finally we just came in and bombed the crap out of the Serbs and started arming the resistance people, and that pretty much ended it. And I think in Rwanda the same thing happened with some of the surrounding countries. They sent troops in and ended that civil war. And the Tutsis and the Hutus were fighting, and I think the Tutsis mass murdered about 1 million Hutus, and so finally the governments around there decided that we can't have this, and they went in and stopped it. So eventually we have to go in and stop the Russians. I mean, we just have to do it.
Go into Ukraine or go into Russia?
Well, I don't care where we go, just as long as we surround them up and stop them. I mean, if you go into Russia, then you got a world war for sure. But I think if you go into the Ukraine, they're going to yell and scream, and the Chinese are going to rattle swords and all that. But I'm not quite sure what anybody could do about it if we went into the Ukraine. The Russians.
Not much. I mean,
No, they can't. The Russians can't take us on mano a mano. They're no match for us.
Not all of NATO, no, obviously.
No. Well, not even for just the United States, they couldn't take us. I mean, come on, their economy's it's 1/100th of ours. Their military is in shambles. Their supply lines, they can't even supply their own people, and they're just a mile across the border from Russia.
Yeah, that's pretty sad.
It is. It's really.
We were afraid of a paper tiger, it looks like.
Well, I don't think they're a paper tiger. I think they're a real tiger. I just don't think they have any claws or teeth.
Well, you can't fight without that if you're a tiger.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you can try. You can swing and pounce and do all that. But
I think they have plenty of munition. They just don't know how to use it.
yeah, they've got the goods. They just don't know how to use it. Well, but you got to remember their equipment is not at the same level as ours. So if you put a T-72 tank up against an Abrams, there's just not much match up there.
Are tanks about to be go the way of the battleship? Are they just too vulnerable now on the battlefield?
I don't know. I mean,
with all these Stinger missiles and everything they got out there now?
Well, they've got these stealthy tanks now that are real low profile, and you actually are kind of half laying down in them as you drive them and fire, and they're real low profile, and they look like one of those F-111 and B-2, the kind of the squared off radar deflecting, and then they coat them with the ferrite and other trace minerals. The ferrite is a concoction of iron that's embedded in like a plastic polymer, and so it's randomly distributed throughout it, and they can use other metals that are radar absorbing, and then they don't reflect back the radar signal. They absorb it, and so then it just looks like a bird.
It's like a rabbit hopping to you. Yeah, I mean, I didn't know we had stealth tanks. I know we had stealth planes and helicopters and ships, but I didn't know about the tanks yet.
Yeah, we're working on those. I don't know if they've been publicly released yet, but they're certainly in the works. I mean, we've got a lot of toys in the works. I saw a really neat thing, Lockheed Martin toy they're playing with. It's dropped from a big C-131 or whatever you call those big cargo planes. And there are these little platforms, and they come down in a parachute, and they drop shells down too that are then laid on the ground. And these things are camouflaged, and they pop up, and they kind of like what do you call it? The robotic things that were big in the movies. I can't remember. They can change into a car or a robot or whatever.
Oh, they kind of morph.
Yeah, they morph into this little anti-tank platform that is then hidden, and you can't see it, and it's got these shells, and it's got a little arm that goes around and picks up an anti-tank shell and fires it. It's got a guidance system on it, and then it rotates around, so it's like a windmill, and it picks up a shell and fires, and picks up a shell and fires, and I mean, you can take out a whole battalion of tanks with these things, and they're unmanned. They are unmanned.
That's why I wonder if the tank is going the way of the battleship. Yeah.
Well, it depends. It depends on what kind of measures you have, missile measures you have, and anti-shell measures.
Which is why we're trying to develop a stealth tank, obviously.
Well, remember, our tanks have that
reactive armor on it. I know.
Yeah, it's like clay. It's like clay, and when the shell hits it, it absorbs the blast and disperses it throughout the clay that hangs off of the tank. So it's pretty cool. Pretty cool. So you got to get in the right spot to take out one of our Abrams. They're not easy to take out. It's kind of like the Tigers were in World War II. You had to get behind them, and then you could shoot them up the arse and get them that way. But frontal, they had too much armor, and our shells just bounced off because we had smaller, lighter tanks, Sherman tanks. Our tanks were built for a different kind of warfare than the big German tanks. And of course, the T-34s that the Russians had, those were for open field, flat land assaults. They were smaller, faster, and even though they weren't as heavy a gun, they could get behind the Shermans and not the Shermans, the Tigers and the Panzers, and they could shoot them from behind and get them in the rear, and that's how they took them out. And that was the big Battle of Kursk, which was the largest tank battle in history. Are those going by the wayside? I don't know. I guess. I mean, when was the last big one? The last biggest one was what?
The first Iraqi war.
Yeah, in 2002, 2003. So you may be right, but there'll be new armaments coming along, and the military is always reluctant to go with anything new. They didn't even want to use repeating rifles in the Civil War.
The Army, quite frankly, couldn't figure out it were used for GPS. They didn't want to develop it.
They didn't want to develop it. And
we don't need this.
Our men are strong. Yeah, right.
We'll give them all maps. See how they do in the middle of a desert with a map.
Oh my God, it's unbelievable. So we have to think about these things, and as egregious as it is to think about war and how painful it is, if you're not prepared, then you're going to lose what you got. It's just that simple. It's like medicine. You got to keep doing the research. You got to keep coming up with new treatments, new cures, new preventions. And if we didn't have this ability, then how would we have fought off this virus? I mean, a lot more people would have died. A lot more people would have died if we hadn't had the ability to come up with the vaccines as rapidly and as efficiently as we did, especially the RNA vaccines, Pfizer and Moderna's.
3 minutes.
We got those at the office if you want a fourth shot. We're recommending that now for people over 65 or anybody with chronic diseases like you can.
Yeah, I'm starting to fall apart here, Doc.
You are, man. I'm worried about you. I don't want.
Well, you don't want to hear that from your doctor.
If Joe comes on in your place full time, I'm going to have to give up the show.
Oh no! Come on, Joe's a great co-host.
I'll be his producer. I'll be his engineer.
Well, then you better keep me alive, Doc.
I'm got to keep you alive, Ken. You're my man. I'm going to keep you alive. So we're at 727-384-6411, 727-384-6411. We've got the vaccine. We've got the rapid COVID test. We've got the rapid PCR test. We've got telemedicine. We've got cardiology. We're going to do an ultrasound on your heart soon, Ken.
2 minutes. 2 minutes.
I think, aren't you scheduled to come in?
Yeah, a couple of weeks I'm going to come in and do some sonic thing, whatever it is.
Yeah, and you said that you had some problems in the past, didn't you?
Yeah, about 10 years ago, I developed the AFib that you hear about on TV all the time. And during that examination, that whole process, they did one of those sonograms on me, and they said, wow, you got an enlarged heart.
Ouch.
They didn't tell me what to do about it, but I knew the answer was going to be stop smoking.
Yep. You got to stop smoking. And did you?
Well, not quite, Doc. I have cut down a lot since then.
Listen, this is a no smoking show, so if you're smoking and you watch the show, we're going to cut your feed off. So
I did cut down. I've cut down by about 50% or so.
Can Dr. Bill actually cut our radio off? Yes, he can. Dr. Bill.
No.
He's got it all.
He can cut your Facebook feed. Yeah, so I'm going to do some more walking, which is something I really don't do much of right now. So cut my salt down, and I'll get my blood pressure down. Everything will be fine.
And remember, the Russians are very happy that we've taken away McDonald's and Burger King and Coca-Cola and Kentucky Fried Chicken because it's making them healthier. They're much healthier now that we got all the junk food out. And in return, they're going to make us healthier. They're cutting off our gasoline, so we'll have to walk more.
30 seconds, Doc. Wrap it up.
And so then we'll all be healthier. And so we're good friends with the Russians now. So we're at 727-384-6411, 727-384-6411. Thank everybody for listening and watching today, Ken. I love you, buddy. Glad to
love you, Doc.
And everybody out there behave and no smoking. I'm Dr. Bill, your Radio MD, and I'm going to get out of here.